Welcome to my channel. I hope today's story will be something you truly enjoy. Please support me even more. Now, let's begin the story.
I woke up early that morning, earlier than I needed to. The Arizona sun was already creeping through the blinds, and the air outside was warming fast, the kind of dry heat that sits heavy on your skin before breakfast even happens. I pulled my hoodie off, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work in the backyard, stringing lights across the fence, arranging folding chairs around the fire pit, wiping down the picnic table where the lemonade jugs would sit. It wasn't much, really, but it was mine. I'd spent weeks planning this graduation party. I didn't care about gifts or speeches or even the diploma. What I wanted, what I had waited 18 years for, was to be seen. I glanced down at my phone, typed a quick message to Ronnie. "Still 6 p.m., right?" No reply. Inside, I heard Mom moving around the kitchen, humming a tune I didn't recognize. She came outside a few minutes later with a Tupperware of cookies and smiled at me, smiled like this was any other Tuesday, like it wasn't supposed to be my day. "Need help?" she asked, casually. I shook my head. "I got it." Before she walked away, I pulled out the handmade banner Kiana, the little girl next door, had made for me. "Congratulations, Riven!" In glitter marker, some letters backwards, taped onto a piece of cardboard. I hung it near the tree, not because it looked good, but because it mattered. Around noon, I started noticing things weren't adding up. Dad was out front mowing the lawn, earbuds in, ignoring everything. Zadie, my sister, was home, which she wasn't supposed to be. She'd canceled her LA trip last minute and had been sulking upstairs all morning, blasting sad songs through her Instagram Live like she was auditioning for pity. Mom kept checking her phone, typing quickly, then slipping it into her pocket the moment I looked her way. No one mentioned the party, not even in passing. Still, I told myself they were just tired, busy, distracted. Maybe they were saving the big moment for later. I'd spent the day making lemonade, setting out the cookies I baked from Grandma's recipe, placing little votive candles in mason jars. By 5 p.m., everything was ready. The chairs were lined up in neat little circles. The table was set. I changed into my favorite sundress, checked my phone again. No missed calls, no texts. 5:30 p.m., nothing. 6 o'clock p.m. The backyard glowed in the evening light, golden and warm, like the ending of a movie that hadn't been written yet. 6:30. Still nothing. I opened my messages. Everyone had RSVP'd. "We'll be there." "Wouldn't miss it." "Can't wait to celebrate you." And yet, nothing. By 7 o'clock, the lemonade had started to sweat through the plastic. The balloons hung limp. The cookies were drying out. My stomach twisted. Maybe traffic. Maybe someone forgot to send a reminder. Maybe. At 7:45, I stepped inside the house. My parents were on the couch, feet up, watching some old crime series like it was any other night. "Hey," I said, careful with my voice, still hopeful enough to be polite. "Where is everyone?" Mom didn't look away from the screen. "Oh, we canceled it. Didn't Dad tell you?" Dad shrugged, eyes still glued to the TV. I stood there for a moment, gripping the back of the chair so I wouldn't fall over. Zadie's door slammed upstairs. Mom added, "Your sister's not in the right headspace for a party. It didn't feel appropriate." That sentence didn't register at first. It just floated there in the air, soft as poison. Not in the right headspace. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I was frozen, mentally detached, like watching someone else's house burn down while sitting in your own kitchen. Mom reached for her phone. "We sent out messages," she said casually, opening the family group chat. Didn't want to overwhelm anybody. She scrolled and then, as if reading a recipe, recited the pinned message. "Let's all keep things peaceful tonight. No drama." No drama. They hadn't just canceled the party. They'd painted me as the threat before I even had a chance to speak. I wasn't the guest of honor. I was the liability. It hit me then. Clear, cold, like a cracked glass in your hand. I hadn't been invited to my own turning point. By the next morning, I couldn't even remember why I'd cared so much. The backyard still looked like a party that someone had abandoned mid-sentence. Folded chairs left out overnight had slumped under the weight of dry air. Balloons sagged low like they knew they'd outlived their purpose. The cookies I'd made were stiff. Even the ants hadn't bothered. No one said a word about it. Not Mom, not Dad. Zadie, of course, acted like the whole thing had never existed. Over breakfast, Mom asked if I wanted toast. That was it. No mention of the party, just toast? Like we hadn't just erased a milestone with the swipe of a group chat pin. When I didn't answer, she looked up from her coffee. Let's not dwell on things that didn't happen, okay? Then she added with a light chuckle, Life goes on, honey. Dad read the sports section. Zadie walked in 10 minutes later, hair still damp, phone in hand, already mid-scroll. Mom told her how proud she was. You've been so resilient, sweetheart. Really strong. Strong. That word again. I looked at my plate. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't anything. Midday came and went. I was in the laundry room when the doorbell rang. Riven, Mom called out. Could you grab that? I opened the door to find a FedEx box, addressed to me in handwritten marker. The return address was Ms. Lewis, my middle school art teacher. We'd kept in touch sporadically. She'd always remembered my birthday. I brought the box inside, set it on the kitchen counter. Mom looked up. Ooh, who's that from? Miss Lewis, I said. She opened it before I could stop her, pulled out a hardback book wrapped in soft tissue paper, a special edition of The Giving Tree. Inside, a handwritten note on a card. To Riven, I'm proud of you. Keep growing. Without hesitation, Mom handed the book to Zadie. You should have this, she said. You need it more. I just stared. The tag has my name on it, I said, not loud. Just factual. Mom didn't miss a beat. You're both our daughters. It doesn't matter who gets what. Zadie flipped open the cover. Thanks. I could use something positive right now. She didn't even say it to me. Just aloud, like I wasn't in the room. I walked away without saying another word, because sometimes, the louder the silence, the deeper the cut. Later that day, I helped Dad stack the folding tables back in the garage. He moved slowly, like he was still working through his morning. Found something, I said, pulling a curled poster from behind the plastic bins. He glanced over. Oh yeah, that was for the party. Forgot we still had that. The poster was meant for my graduation. Big block letters. Only... Congrats, Riva, it read. Riva, that's our cat. He laughed. It was a typo at the print shop. We thought it was funny. Funny, I looked at him. Did anyone even care it was my graduation? He paused, shrugged. You know not everything's personal, Riven. I let out a short breath, something between a laugh and a cough. Sure. That night I went to the store with Mom. I didn't want to, but she said we were out of milk and I didn't want to argue. At the checkout, Mrs. Chen, the neighbor 2 houses down, tapped my arm gently. We missed your party. I saw the photos online. Looked beautiful. Wasn't that your sister's thing? I blinked. She smiled. Anyway, congratulations to her. She's been through so much lately. When we got home, I went straight to my room, pulled out my phone, and opened Instagram. Zadie had posted a carousel. Photos of the backyard, my decorations, my banner, my cookies. Captioned, hard to celebrate anything lately, but I'm trying. The comments flooded in. You deserve it. Proud of you for pushing through. Stay strong. Not one mention of me. Not one tag. It was like watching someone else live your life on your behalf. Better, shinier, and without your name on it. I closed the app, threw the phone on my bed, sat in the dark. Later, I walked to the kitchen, opened the trash bin, and dug out the packaging from Miss Lewis's gift. Found the gift tag, held it in my hand, not as proof, not to fight with, just to remember it happened. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted them to remember it was mine first. The air in the house felt different the next day. Not loud, not tense, just too quiet to be normal. I was up before anyone else, again, but this time, not out of hope or purpose. Habit, maybe. I moved slower. My limbs felt heavier, like my body had finally caught up with the truth. Zadie was already dressed when she walked past my room. She was wearing the blue dress I'd ironed and laid out for my graduation. It was wrinkled now, a little stained near the collar, and smelled like hairspray and cheap perfume. She didn't ask, didn't pretend to. She just said, "I figured it didn't matter anymore," and tossed the dress on my bed like it was a receipt she didn't need. I didn't say anything. I folded the dress carefully and placed it in the bottom drawer of my dresser, not to wear, not even to keep, just to stop it from staring back at me. After lunch, I started cleaning my room. I needed something to do with my hands. Something that wouldn't make me feel like I was waiting again. I pulled an old shoebox from under my bed. I hadn't opened it in over a year. Inside were old birthday cards, school play programs, crumpled ribbons from spelling bees, my first honor roll certificate. Most of them had handwriting I recognized, notes from teachers, little drawings from classmates, things people had once given me without asking what my sister thought first. One picture caught my eye. A birthday party from years ago. Zadie's smile beamed front and center. I was in the corner of the frame, barely lit, holding an unopened gift on my lap. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just been overlooked this week. I'd been background noise in my own story for years. I put the lid back on the box and slid it into the back of the closet, not because I wanted to forget, but because I needed to remember that I had existed, even if no one else acted like it. Later that afternoon, I walked past the hallway. The long wall of frames was something Mom had always curated like a museum exhibit. Zadie in her cap and gown. Zadie in Cancun. Zadie next to a podium at a workshop I didn't even know she'd attended. I scanned the whole stretch. There hadn't been a new photo of me since the science fair in 7th grade, the one where my volcano had collapsed. As I stood there, Mom passed behind me carrying laundry. "We just haven't had time to update," she said without looking up. Zadie's latest photo, framed in gold, had been added 2 weeks ago. I didn't argue. I turned the corner and went to my room, closed the door with more silence than usual, locked it. That evening, while walking to the kitchen, I noticed the folding table in the living room was covered in colored paper and printed quotes. The family had put together a memory board for a local church event. Each person had a section. Zadie's was full. Pictures, awards, inspirational notes. Mom and Dad had little blurbs, even childhood snapshots. Mine, a blank square, no name, no words, no photo. Mom must have seen my face. "We didn't have anything recent from you. Didn't want to guess." Zadie laughed from the couch. "You've always been kind of private. We didn't want to overstep." I smiled, small, stiff. That was thoughtful. Then I walked upstairs and closed my door. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new notebook. Not a journal, not a place to vent, just a ledger. I started writing dates, events, messages. What was said? Who said it? If no one else would keep track of my presence, I would. I taped Kiana's glittery card back on the wall. Not because I needed decoration, but because it was the only thing in that house that still had my name written on it like it mattered. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream. I wanted something more dangerous. I wanted proof. But even stories need a witness, and I wasn't sure I had one. Dinner that night was quieter than usual, though not for lack of talking. The room was full of sound, just not conversation that mattered. Dad read aloud a neighborhood newsletter like it was breaking news. "Apparently, the Hendersons are finally tearing out that old tree. About time." Zadie chimed in about some skincare collab. "It's small, but they're giving me full creative control. Might launch something seasonal." Mom nodded through it all like a talk show host keeping her audience engaged. The only one not part of the script was me. I ate slowly, didn't speak unless asked, tried not to look at the banners still folded on the sideboard. My banner, the one nobody bothered to hang. Then Mom smiled and said it like it was the weather. "Let's just be grateful the weekend passed without drama." I didn't say a word, but the water in my glass suddenly tasted metallic. That sentence sat in my throat, and for a second I wanted to throw the glass just to hear it shatter, so something else in this house would finally make noise. But I swallowed it, and kept chewing. Later that evening, I was folding towels in the hallway when I heard Mom on the phone. She wasn't whispering, not hiding. "She's still so fragile," she said. "The breakup, the canceled trip. It's been a lot. That's why we didn't do the party. Riven understands. She's strong. Always has been." My hand stopped mid-fold. I walked into the kitchen. She saw me but didn't pause the call. Just wrapped it up like she'd just been talking about the weather again. When she hung up, I looked at her. Not in anger. Not even confusion. "Did it ever cross your mind how I felt?" She set the phone down. "Of course it did, but honey, your sister needs more love than you, and you've always been the strong one." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the words left to explain what that sentence did to a person. It was the kind of thing people say when they want you to feel grateful for being neglected. I finished folding the towels, walked them to the linen closet, then I went to bed without brushing my teeth. The next morning, Grandpa Silvio showed up. He didn't call first. He never does. Said he was dropping off old paperwork and wanted to check in. He helped me take out the trash, one of the few chores I still offered to do without being asked. As we reached the bin, he stopped, looked down, reached in and pulled out a crumpled gift bag. My name was still on the tag. He turned it in his hands. "What's this?" I shrugged. "Doesn't matter." He didn't say anything for a moment, then quiet. "I paid for that gift." He didn't need to say more. Later, he stepped inside and looked directly at Mom. Did she not deserve even one gift? Mireya didn't even blink. "There was a mix-up with the delivery. We weren't sure if it arrived." Silvio didn't nod, didn't scold, but something in his jaw locked up. His eyes didn't blink. He left the bag on the table and told me he'd be back next week. I said, "Okay." I sat in my room that afternoon thinking about what Mom said the night before, about being strong. I remembered something my English teacher once wrote on the board. "Silence is only golden when it's a choice." Back then, I thought it was poetic. Now, it felt like a warning. I took a sticky note, wrote that line down, and pinned it just below Kiana's card on the wall. My private corner of honesty. I wasn't angry at my family anymore. Not in the way people think anger looks. I was done giving them comfort they hadn't earned. That night, I was finishing up a document when Zadie knocked. She didn't wait for me to say, "Come in." "You've been distant," she said. Kinda passive-aggressive, honestly. I looked at her, calm. "Passive people don't keep records." She frowned. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. I turned back to my desk, started organizing everything. Messages, screenshots, receipts. Not for war, just for truth. I heard her mutter something under her breath as she walked away. 10 minutes later, I found an envelope on my nightstand. No name on it, but I knew the handwriting. Inside, a single note. "For whenever you're ready to be louder." I sat with that for a long time. Then I whispered to no one in particular. And for the first time, I considered what it would look like if I didn't just endure, but exposed. What I didn't expect was someone else deciding to pay for me. 4 days had passed since the backyard party that never happened. 4 days since I found out my graduation was never about me. 4 days of silence stretching long between me and the one person I thought would always show up. So I texted Ronnie. I didn't expect much, but I needed to hear something, anything. She took a while to reply. When she did, her message was short. "Hey, my mom told me not to come. Said your mom said you were overwhelmed and didn't want visitors. I didn't know. I'm sorry." That was it. I called her. My voice cracked on the first word, but I didn't cry. She sounded nervous. "Riven, I would have come. I really would have. But I thought, maybe you needed space." I cut her off gently. "Thanks for telling me." She offered to come over now, said she'd bring ice cream. I told her not to. I wasn't angry. But I didn't want someone coming to patch a wound they didn't know existed until it scabbed over. Truth, not pity. I sat out on the porch for a while after that. No phone, no noise, just the buzz of summer bugs and the occasional car passing like it had better places to be. Then I heard the gate squeak. Kiana, the little girl from next door, tiptoed in. She was maybe 9, freckles, 2 pigtails that never stayed even. She held something in her hands, a folded piece of cardstock, markers bleeding through the paper. "I made this for you," she said. "I saw the balloons, so I figured it was your party." I took it. Bright colors, glitter everywhere, a giant sun drawn with what looked like a crayon meltdown. Inside it read, "You are my favorite big neighbor." That's it. No hashtags, no filters, just truth. I said thank you and meant it. She skipped away, barefoot, humming some made-up song. I stared at that card for a long time. Longer than I'd ever stared at any award I'd won. That night, after dinner, I went upstairs and opened my laptop. Zadie had posted a new video, a montage, my decorations, my candles, even the lemonade table, captioned, "Trying to stay strong through hard days, thankful for family." The comments rolled in. "So brave. You inspire me. Love how your family supports you. Not one mention of me, not one photo that showed whose party it really was. I didn't like, didn't comment, didn't share." I took a screenshot. Then I dragged it into a folder I had just created. False history. If they could rewrite it, I could record it. Later that night, I reached for my journal, the one I used to keep everything, thoughts, quotes, favorite lyrics, but I couldn't remember what the original party invitation looked like. Not the colors, not the wording, not even the date. I searched the trash bin, the recycle folder on my computer. Gone. That scared me more than the silence ever had. Erasure isn't always loud. Sometimes it sneaks in like fog, soft, quiet, slow, until you look around and can't see the shape of yourself anymore. I got out a thumbtack and pinned Kiana's card above my bed. Underneath it, I wrote, "This happened. I was here." The next morning, I went into the garage. I pulled out a box of old files, yearbooks, school projects, saved messages, emails I hadn't opened in years. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't even planning anything big. I just needed to prove I existed. To myself. I started sorting through everything. Dates, times, messages, screen captures, screenshots. I labeled folders, made backups. Every word said to me that I knew would be denied later. I saved it. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post, because sometimes loyalty looks like silence. But loyalty without truth? That's the most expensive kind. And I was done paying for it with pieces of myself. I woke up before the sun, and for the first time in days, there was no ache in my chest. No panic about what might go wrong. No twisted hope that someone might finally say the thing I'd been waiting to hear. I was done waiting. The air inside the house felt still, like it knew what was coming. I walked through the kitchen, barefoot, past the photos that never changed and the silence that never explained itself. Zadie was out, filming, probably. Dad sat at the counter sipping coffee and scrolling his phone like the weekend never happened. Mireya handed me a grocery list without a glance. "Can you grab milk and eggs this morning?" she said. "No, thank you, no good morning, just routine." I nodded, took the list, and when I looked at the family group chat later, I saw they'd renamed it Family of 3. That's when I knew, not in a loud, dramatic way, but with the same finality you feel when a door quietly clicks shut behind you. I went upstairs and started packing. One drawer at a time. Quiet. No panic. Just the essentials. Clothes, laptop, files, and Kiana's card. From the back of my desk drawer, I pulled out the folder I'd been building. Screenshots, printed messages, the gift tag from Ms. Lewis. Receipts of everything I wasn't supposed to keep. Everything they might one day pretend didn't happen. Then I opened the note from Silvio, reread it. "For when you're ready to be louder." I folded a piece of lined paper and wrote a single sentence. Put it in an envelope. No name on the front. In the kitchen, I slid it under the sugar jar. Then I zipped my bag and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just breathed out, like I was done holding something I never agreed to carry. As I stepped off the front porch, I opened Facebook, one last glance at what the outside world thought of my family. There she was. Mireya had posted a photo, a filtered shot of Zadie hugging her at the kitchen sink. Caption: "Sometimes a mother has to make the hardest decisions. When your child pulls away, You hold tighter, even if it hurts. The comments came quick. You're such a strong mom. This breaks my heart. Kids can be so ungrateful. I didn't screenshot it, didn't save it, didn't reply. When a lie is polished enough, I thought, the truth always looks messy, but at least mine doesn't need a filter. I kept walking. The sun was dipping low, casting a golden haze over the sidewalks. The streets I'd grown up on no longer felt like mine. They were too familiar to be comforting, too unchanged to be safe. I didn't go far, just 2 neighborhoods over. Silvio's porch light was already on when I got there. I didn't knock. I didn't have to. He opened the door like he knew I'd be there. He didn't say anything, just stepped aside and gestured me in. I placed my bag by the hallway and stood there, unsure of what to say for the first time all day. "Can I stay here for a while?" I asked, without having to explain anything yet. He nodded once, no questions, no speeches. I slept in the guest room that night, fully clothed, on top of the covers, shoes still by the edge of the bed. I didn't unpack. I didn't need to. Back at the house, Mireya went into the kitchen to make tea, reached for the sugar, found the envelope. She opened it, probably expecting a cry for help, or a thank you, maybe even a passive-aggressive guilt trip. But it only said one thing. "Thank you for showing me what it feels like to be invisible. I will never unsee it again." She read it once, then again, then again. Joel walked in with a bag of takeout and saw her standing still. "What's wrong?" he asked. She looked at him, a faint smile on her lips, but her hands were trembling just enough for him to notice. "She left," she said. But what I left behind wasn't just a note, it was the beginning of the truth. 5 days at Grandpa Silvio's house, and I had already built a routine. Quiet, sharp, intentional. Mornings started with black coffee and silent glances between us. Afternoons were for reading, sorting files, checking every corner of my past. Nights were for remembering what they'd tried to erase. Silvio didn't hover. He didn't ask questions. He just existed in the way I needed someone to, steady and unbothered. "Justice isn't always loud," he said once as he passed me a thumb drive, "but it always keeps receipts." I took that to heart. I started setting up email alerts, changed passwords, checked every setting, every document, and that's when I saw it. Under my college account, pending scholarship reassignment. At first, I thought it was a glitch, some system delay, but the words stuck, reassignment. The next morning, I walked into the admissions office like I was checking for routine info. I asked about scholarship disbursement. The woman behind the counter smiled politely and pulled up my file. "Oh yes," she said. "Your parent reached out last week to redirect the scholarship. It's being adjusted toward a sibling's tuition, something related to mental health accommodations." I didn't flinch, didn't blink. I asked for clarification. "It was approved under your name. Your mom signed as your proxy." The sibling? Zadie. I stood still, calm. But inside, it felt like my spine cracked. "I appreciate your help," I said softly. I left. Didn't break down. Didn't call anyone. I walked to the student center bathroom, locked the stall, and sat there breathing in tile cleaner and cold air. Then I opened the voice recorder on my phone and whispered every word that had been said. Dates, names, phrases, because this wasn't about emotion anymore, it was about facts. That evening, back in Silvio's study, I opened my laptop and started drafting the email. But before I could finish, a message came in. It was from Isaiah. I barely knew him, just remembered he used to hang around Zadie a year ago, back when she was still pretending to be balanced. His message was short. "I know you don't know me, but I think you deserve to see this." He sent screenshots, messages from Zadie to someone named Cole, paragraphs mocking me. "She always acts like the wounded little saint. I can spin that better than she can. People believe what you feed them first." Another. "I'm not worried. She doesn't have the guts." I stared at the screen for a long time. Isaiah added, "I won't go public unless you want me to, but I'm done pretending she didn't burn everyone around her." I typed back, "I don't need you to speak for me, but thank you for not staying silent." The next morning, I pulled everything together. Screenshots, audio recordings, tuition documents, every lie lined up like bricks in a wall they didn't think I'd build. I titled the email, Correction Request, Scholarship Misuse. Attached everything. Wrote a clean, direct statement. No emotion, just dates, actions, violations. I CC'd Silvio's legal advisor. Then saved a copy to a backup drive. Silvio walked past me as I hovered over the send button. He didn't say much, just nodded. I clicked. It was the quietest war I'd ever started. Later, I sat at the dining table with a cup of tea, staring out the window. Memories hit me in waves. Mom's voice telling people I was strong enough to be neglected. Dad pretending not to notice. Zadie polishing lies until they shimmered like truth. But I wasn't crying. I was calculating. Let's see who still claps, I whispered, when the truth is louder than the performance. I didn't start the fire, but I was done pretending it wasn't burning. I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Messages, tags, missed calls. Didn't know Zadie graduated again? Isn't that your banner in the background? Looks like your cookies. I opened Instagram. There it was. A full reel. Slow pans, subtle filters, soft music of the decorations from my party. The string lights I strung myself. The hand-lettered banner Kiana had made. The mason jars filled with lemonade. Every single thing I'd prepped for a celebration that never happened, except now it had happened, just without me. Zadie's caption, "We may not always be celebrated, but we rise anyway." Comments were pouring in. "You're so strong. Glad you finally got the love you deserve. Your family is lucky to have you." I stared at the screen. I wasn't angry because she lied. I was angry because she stole the story that was never hers. I didn't reply. Didn't message her. I opened my own account, found the clearest photo I had, the backyard the night it was supposed to be mine. And the chairs were still empty, the cookies untouched, the gift tag from Mrs. Lewis resting on the table. I posted that picture with a single line. No one came, because it was never meant to happen. That was it. Within an hour, it had been shared more times than anything I'd ever posted. Not viral, just quietly loud. People I hadn't spoken to in months commented with one word. Saw. Knew. Truth. Zadie responded the way she always did. Dramatic, polished, layered in soft victimhood. She posted a story, a crying selfie, then a long paragraph. Sometimes, people rewrite your life to hurt you. I've always been honest. I've always loved fully. But people paint you as the villain when they can't control the narrative. I almost laughed. Then I turned my phone off. At home, things weren't going any smoother. Joel came home from work to find Silvio already seated at the kitchen table. Calm, hands folded, voice low. "I'm withdrawing all financial support." Joel's reaction wasn't confusion, it was fear. "Silvio, wait, can we just talk this through? We're trying to keep the family together." Silvio didn't flinch. "No, Joel, you're trying to keep your image intact. That's not family, that's theater." And just like that, Joel cracked. He sat down at the kitchen island, buried his face in his hands. He didn't cry out of guilt. He cried out of loss. And I stood in the hallway, watching. Not a tear came to me, not a twinge of pity. Because now I knew no one had ever fought for me. They fought for appearances. They fought to preserve the lie. That night, Zadie sent me a voice note. Not a text, a voice note. "You're ruining everything. You think this makes you better than us? You've always been jealous. You just hide it behind that martyr act." I saved it. Didn't reply. Just forwarded it to the college grievance office. By 8 p.m., I got the response. "Your request is being formally investigated. We've frozen the reassigned scholarship funds until further review." I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I boiled a pot of pasta and listened to the water hiss. When people lie long enough, they forget who they lied to first. I didn't. The next day, Maria made one last attempt to reclaim the narrative. She posted a filtered photo of her garden and captioned it, "Sometimes the child who walks away teaches you more than the one who stays." But the comment section was different this time. People asked questions. Some didn't comment at all. A few just said, "Finally." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I was in the kitchen with Silvio, chopping onions, checking scholarship emails, setting up an alumni group for kids who had lost their voices in families like mine. Because I had found mine, and it wasn't for sale anymore. They tried to turn me into a story they could control. But now I'm writing the ending, and it's mine. Northern Arizona was colder than I expected. The wind had a way of cutting past your hoodie, reminding you there were places in the world that didn't care who you used to be. I dragged 2 suitcases across a cracked sidewalk toward the dorm building. New faces passed by, laughing, lugging mini fridges, trying to act like they weren't terrified. Maybe they were. I wasn't. I wasn't excited either. I wasn't looking for reinvention or escape. I just wanted to begin. Inside the room, I unpacked slowly. One drawer at a time. No rush. I hung up my clothes, set out my toothbrush, and finally placed Kiana's card above the desk by the window. "You are my favorite big neighbor." That one line had outlasted all the carefully curated posts, the printed awards, the rehearsed dinner table speeches. This time, I'm choosing who stays in the frame. A week passed before I got the notice from the university. I sat in the financial aid office, just wanting to confirm the final numbers. The clerk smiled and slid a copy of my tuition statement across the counter. Paid in full. There, printed in neat black letters. Silvio Alvarez. I held the paper for a while, staring at it like it might fade if I blinked too fast. I thanked the woman and walked out slowly. That evening, I called Silvio. "I'll pay you back," I said. "You already did," he answered, "by not shrinking yourself." I didn't have words for that, just a lump in my throat that didn't come from pain. It came from being seen without having to beg for it. Love is strange like that. Sometimes the loudest kind never raises its voice. Back in my dorm room, I sat down and opened a fresh page in my journal. I started a letter, not to send, just to let go. "You tried to teach me silence," I wrote, "but I learned strength instead. I don't forgive what you did. I accept that you did it." I folded it once, tucked it into the back pocket of my journal. No envelope, no stamp. Forgiveness isn't something you give away, it's something you free yourself from. I closed the book and didn't open it again. Zadie hadn't posted anything in over a week. Her account was still active, but quiet. Online, the story had shifted. A few threads on forums, a podcast that referenced an anonymous family with a public daughter and a forgotten one. I listened to half the episode, then turned it off. I didn't need justice from strangers anymore. I had already gotten it from myself. Healing isn't loud. It's not a clapback. It's not a trending hashtag. It's sitting on a dorm bed on a cold Tuesday, finishing your homework, and realizing your stomach doesn't knot when you hear your phone buzz. I let it go. A few days later, I went to a student meetup for first-gen college kids, a circle of folding chairs, free pizza, and introductions that felt like small breaths of air. When it was my turn, I said, "My name's Riven. I'm here to study psychology. I want to help people see what they've been taught to ignore." Nobody clapped. Nobody gasped. They just nodded. And I felt seen. Not as the broken one, not as the silent one, just me. Back in my dorm that night, I took a photo of myself. No filter, just me in that little room, tired eyes and all. I printed it out and placed it next to Kiana's card. Some wounds don't fully heal, but they do stop bleeding, and that's when you know you've survived.